exposed. The incredible transformation of a mountain man's hidden, gentle heart, a touching love. Jack stood at the edge of his front porch, looming like a weathered tree against the backdrop of an autumn sky, shadows stretching beneath his broad shoulders. The mountains breathed their rich colors around him, greens and golds that had bloomed from the recent rain. But here he was, alone just how he preferred it, until a knock broke the silence. His heart kicked against his ribs, vulnerability creeping in. Who would dare interrupt the sanctuary he had carved from this rough landscape? A woman's voice disrupted his reverie, two simple words lingering like an echo. "Is anyone home?" Jack hesitated, skin prickling with unease. He studied the doorway, muscles tensed for any sign of danger. Opening up to a stranger, to anyone really, felt like unearthing a long-buried fragment of a life he had all but forgotten, an artist's heart hiding beneath years of stoicism. His isolation had been a shield, a learned independence from a father who had taught him to rely on no one but himself. Now, standing at the threshold of that door, he could either fortify his defenses or take a step into the unknown. Just then, her shadow fell across the cabin's dim light, illuminating a tentative spirit. He opened the door, revealing the young artist with mud-streaked boots and paint-splattered fingers. For a moment, the primal instincts honed in nature wrestled with a flicker of something familiar. Could it be connection? A softening? Though she looked as if she stumbled through the very shadows he had embraced, a tug of recognition pulled at him. He let her in against every instinct that urged him to retreat into the deep-seated shadows of solitude. This stranger was unfamiliar territory, and his walls began to crack as gentle words filled the space around them. They talked about art, she taking every opportunity to share her passion, and there it was, the spark ignited inside him. The brush he feared was gathering dust, now seemed to tremble with unexpressed potential. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notification from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But as hope blossomed, dread coiled around his stomach. The weight of obligation, of family legacy, and parental expectations snaked back into his thoughts. Who was he to aspire to more than the hardened image he cultivated? A painting under his skin awakened, revealing shades of doubt and fear. Lurking artist within him kept caged by his father's iron grip on his notions of identity. The air thickened with his internal conflict. Was it even possible to be both a man of the mountains and a man transformed by love? As the sun dipped lower, the ember of connection began to flicker in uncertainty, frustration prickling at the edges. What if Sarah's background cast a shadow over everything he thought he could embrace? Before he could take a breath, an article flashed in his mind, an impending judgment poised to stab through their connection, just as he felt himself slipping from the shackles of isolation. The cabin grew smaller, the walls closing in, leaving him standing at the precipice of his own, making between the haunting legacy of his father and the fragile hope of acceptance she offered. Where would he fall into this tumult of emotions? Would he distance himself to keep her safe from his past, or take a chance on the tangled, beautiful uncertainty ahead? The air was heavy, the question pulsing within him, what would remain of him if he ever chose to love? Jack felt the weight of silence pressing against him, thick and suffocating. There was a heartbeat between them, a rhythm dictated by unspoken words and palpable tensions. He paced the interior of his cabin, the shadows swirling around him as he battled his unyielding instincts. Each step felt heavy with the footsteps of the past, his father's gruff voice echoing in the recesses of his mind, twisting images of success and masculinity into something rigid and cold. He glanced outside, where the sun dipped low behind jagged peaks, softening its light. It forced him to confront the dichotomy between the man he had been molded into and the artist he yearned to embrace. Just beyond the walls of his modest home, the colors of autumn beckoned. They whispered promises of beauty yet unexplored, but he resisted, firmly rooted in fear. "I can't," he muttered to himself, retreating further into the grip of self-restriction. The vivid conversations they shared flickered in and out like the dying embers of a fire, reminding him of what could lie just beyond this unfamiliar horizon. But then came the voice of doubt, sharp and imposing, nudging him back to the shadows that had become his sanctuary. Yet, Sarah's laughter danced in his mind, an unexpected light breaking through his carefully constructed barriers. Each laugh echoed the joy he had thought long abandoned. It was refreshing yet unnerving, igniting a war within him. Could he cultivate this connection, or would it wither like the leaves that fell away in the chill of fall? His mind raced, searching for clarity, a skill he had acquired through months of solitude. He slipped into the rhythm of contemplation, recognizing the flickers of creativity he had suppressed for so long. Beneath the layers of rugged masculinity, there was a wellspring of artistic insight he had only occasionally caught glimpses of. With every imaginary stroke of a brush, he felt the urge to create swell just beneath the surface. But then the memories of his father's stubborn pragmatism clawed back into view. No son of mine is going to waste his time on poverty, he debarked during any mention of Jack's burgeoning talent. The pragmatic expectations would have stifled his dream before it had a chance to take root. Nothing had changed. He'd be judged, scorned for daring to challenge the script that had been written long before he had taken his first breath. The door creaked, and Jack turned sharply, only to find Sarah watching him with a curious intensity, a delicate understanding etched across her features. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern evident in her gaze. The concern washed over him like a soothing balm, breaking through the forts he had erected around his heart. "Yeah," Jack replied, though it came out more as a question. He paced again, hardly noticing how the motion mirrored both his inner chaos and the spirits of countless artists who had fought to be seen, to be heard, to be free. "Jack," she pressed gently, "I sense there's more you're not saying. It's all right if you need to figure things out." And for the first time, there was an invitation in her words, a pathway to letting go of the fear tethering him to the past. This ignited something deep within him. The walls trembled, and Jack knew he stood at a precipice the acceptance of Sarah's gentle coaxing could tear through his inner battles. The artist within him wanted out, craved to be liberated, but could he risk it? Could he truly reveal the essence of who he was beneath the grand exterior? The moment lingered, charged and electric, urging him to act. As reminders of past failures washed over him, he realized that perhaps the greatest risk wasn't in losing his stable existence, but in remaining stagnant, unfulfilled, a man always trapped in isolation, never exposing his heart to love or creation. In that stillness, he chose to plunge into the depths of uncertainty, eyes still fixed on Sarah. For the first time, he felt ready to confront the artist he had disowned, the love he yearned to cultivate. But as a sliver of hope broke through, a bitter reminder surfaced. His father's looming shadow remained a legacy he couldn't shake that threatened to pull him back into the void he desperately tried to escape. Jack's heart raced. The choice before him was twofold: embrace the fear and face the rebellion of love, or retreat back into the mountains alone. Uncertainty gripped him. The time had come to face the ghosts haunting his past and confront a future he had no idea how to navigate. Would he unearth his true self, or fall into the abyss crafted by the expectations of those before him? As he met Sarah's gaze, an uncomfortable truth loomed on the horizon. Conflict awaited him, and the journey to love would soon require all of him. Jack felt the air grow heavier in the room, charged with the tension between him and Sarah. The unspoken words hung in the space like a beckoning storm, urging him to step closer to what lay hidden beneath the surface. Her gaze was unwavering, a gentle challenge that dared him to break free from the constraints of his upbringing. The simple act of meeting her eyes ignited a flicker of courage. Yet was quickly overshadowed by the looming reminders of his past, the voice of his father drilling into him that vulnerability was weakness. "Jack," Sarah breathed, her voice steady and inviting. "You don't have to pretend with me." He stalled, trapped in a carousel of self-doubt. What did she see in him? The cautious man intent on keeping the colors of his life muted? Or was it a glimpse of the artist he longed to be? The stark contrast between their worlds thundered in his mind. He stammered, his voice faltering as he braved the plunge. "I'm not who you think I am. I don't know how to share any of this." The confession dripped from him, heavy and raw, marveling even himself at the admission. Sarah took a step closer, a tangible warmth radiating from her, compelling him to confront his fear. "What if you let me in? What if you just let go?" Each word felt like a small hammer against the walls he had built, breaking the concrete of fear slowly but surely. The thought of letting go tugged at his insides. He wanted to surrender, to lay bare his vulnerabilities, but centuries of masculinity and tradition loomed behind him like a specter. In that moment of hesitation, Jack felt an urge to escape, to run back into the sanctuary of the mountains that had sheltered him for so long. They had forgiven him for his silence, the brush of creativity that lay dormant within him. Yet here, surrounded by the soft echo of Sarah's breathing, the mountains felt far less alluring. His choice became clear, and the reality of his stagnation prickled at him like thorns. "Here's what I'm afraid of," he finally said, choosing his words carefully. "What if I uncover something that hurts both of us? What if I disappoint you?" His honesty hung briefly in the air, exposed and vulnerable. For so long, Jack anticipated disappointment. He had internalized it from his father, absorbed it like a sponge. "That is a risk everyone takes," Sarah replied softly but firmly. "Growth is not about avoiding pain. We can't build something beautiful if we're afraid of breaking." Jack's heart raced at the thought. She was inviting him into the unknown, a realm that held possibility but also danger. Wasn't this what he craved? Not just to create art, but to create connections, real, authentic connections? As she took another step forward, Jack felt the weight of his decision tipping in favor of exploration. The irony struck him. Standing at the edge of vulnerability was terrifying, yet promised liberation. What if he embraced uncertainty? He exhaled slowly, letting his defenses slip inch by careful inch. "I want to try." The admission echoed across the small distance that had stood between them. Each word unfurled a stark resolution within him, a determination that shifted more than just air. It rekindled the embers of creativity buried under layers of pain and doubt. "Let us start by painting something together," he offered, a hesitant smile playing on his lips. There was a spark of excitement there, burgeoning inside him, a possibility that he had almost forgotten existed. Sarah's eyes lit up with enthusiasm at the prospect, a confirmation of the path they were now both willing to explore. "But I need your guidance," Jack continued, newfound conviction in his voice. "If I'm falling, I need someone to catch me." And there it lay, the interweaving of fear and hope, an unfamiliar tapestry waiting to be woven. He stood on the precipice of rediscovery, balancing on the knife's edge of vulnerability and artistic expression. He felt the wind shift, the mountains whispering promises of a journey yet to unfold. But just as his heart began to brace for this newfound adventure, another whisper slithered into his mind, the disapproving echoes of his father, haunting him with unyielding force. With every brush he envisioned picking up, a delicate dance between shame and courage played out in his psyche. Jack inhaled deeply, the ghosts of the past swirling around him like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. The battle was far from over. There were still shadows to confront and a legacy to redefine. As he took a steadier step towards Sarah, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that reminded him of the past he carried and the future he dared to build. Would the shadows continue to haunt him, or could they become part of the canvas he was beginning to create? The moment was poised for revelation, holding the breath of countless answers. What came next hinged on his willingness to face not only the world, but himself, a decision that could shape the destiny of the artist he was destined to become. Together, Jack murmured, the word resonating in the quiet before a storm. And within him, a new drive thrummed, echoing something profound, a sense that the time had come to confront not just his fears, but the very essence of who he had yet to become. As the last rays of sunlight splattered against the walls of the studio like vibrant paint on a blank canvas, Jack felt a surge of unexpected excitement, mixed with a daunting realization that uncertainty was now his closest companion. The room was a sanctuary, a space devoid of his father's judgment and the weight of expectations that had burdened him for so long. For the first time, he could sense a shift, a transformative energy coursing through him as he and Sarah prepared to embrace this new chapter of creativity together. "All right," Sarah said, her voice threaded with enthusiasm. "What do you want to paint?" Jack stared at the blank canvas, its pristine surface a reflection of his own untapped potential. Just moments ago, he had considered only the chaos of his feelings, but now he could hear whispers of inspiration calling to him, urging him to take the plunge. "I think I want to capture the mountains," he finally replied, recalling their stoic beauty and the solace they offered him throughout his life. "Mountains it is," Sarah affirmed, already moving towards the array of colors awaiting them. She seemed to know, instinctively, that the challenge of melding their visions together would push both of them further than they had imagined. Yet there was an undercurrent of fear mingling with the anticipation building in Jack's gut. Despite the warmth of her presence, shadows flickered at the edges of his mind, taunting him with insecurities. As Sarah handed him a brush, he clenched it tightly, caught between inspiration and the fear of failure. He hesitated, feeling exposed. This brush represented more than just a tool. It was a symbol of his willingness to reveal himself, to share the unrefined aspects of his soul that he had buried for too long. "What if I mess it up?" he asked, his voice a soft tremor. "Imperfection is where the beauty lies," Sarah assured him, her smile unwavering. "Let the canvas become your guide." Taking a deep breath, Jack dipped the brush into a vibrant blue, the color evoking memories of clear skies against the mountain crests he loved. He swept the bristles across the canvas, and with each stroke, the mountains began to materialize. He felt a rush of exhilaration, the boundaries of his fear blurring under the rhythm of creation. But the whispering doubts still clung to him like shadows. Every brushstroke carried echoes of his father's voice, the man who had insisted that feelings should remain buried, that vulnerability equated to weakness. Just as the paint melded seamlessly together, Jack's emotions began to intertwine with his artistry. He recoiled momentarily, grappling with the conflict within. Could he truly express the intricate beauty of his thoughts when he was still so entangled in shame? "Jack, breathe," Sarah encouraged gently, observing the flickers of tension in his brow. "This is your moment. What you create doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be genuine." Her words tugged at him, urging him to relinquish the corrosive thoughts that bound him in place. Yet, as the colors began to blend and flourish under his hand, he realized that letting go of his fears was more daunting than he had anticipated. Would his desire for acceptance overshadow the authenticity he yearned to express? How could he balance the artist and the man, the son and the visionary? With each attempt, Jack discovered something new, a hidden spark that lay dormant beneath self-doubt. He painted with a fervor that surprised him, channeling memories into bold strokes and soft hues that narrated tales of resilience and longing. For every ounce of vulnerability he projected onto the canvas, he felt a counterweight of fear push back, yet he pushed through, immersed in the process of creation. Suddenly, the revelation hit him with the force of a crashing wave. This act of painting wasn't just about the piece that would hang in an exhibit. It was about reclaiming pieces of himself that had lain dormant for so long, about rising from the ashes of his past. Yet just as that realization surged through him, an unsettling unease crept back into the corners of his mind. What if the connection he was fostering with Sarah was as vulnerable as the art he was attempting to create? Could he maintain the courage to continue laying himself bare without breaking beneath the weight of his fears? As Jack stepped back to assess the painting, he felt the whirlwind of emotions, hope entwined with anxiety, connection laced with reservation. He now stood at a crossroads, teetering between the past and the potential future, caught in the delicate dance of creativity and intimacy. The unfinished painting echoed the journey still ahead, both for the art and for himself. He had taken strides toward vulnerability, but the deeper truths remained just out of reach, shadows lurking beneath the surface, ready to emerge. With determined resolve, Jack prepared to face whatever lay ahead, knowing full well that breaking the surface of his fears would be the ultimate test of his growth. What would happen when he confronted the shadows of his past? Would the artistry of his vulnerabilities lead to revelation, or would they spiral into a darkness he had yet to fully comprehend? The moment of truth loomed just beyond the horizon, ready to unveil the next layer of this extraordinary journey. With each passing moment in the studio, the tension between creation and fear wove itself tighter around Jack, becoming an unyielding embrace of duality. He blinked at the canvas, the mountain landscape taking form, but his internal landscape still tumultuous. He dipped the brush into a bright green, a burst of life reflecting the hidden vibrancy he feared might never surface. As he laid the color onto the canvas, memories of backpacking trips with his father played in his mind. Mountains turned into battlegrounds of expectation, where each climb became a question of strength, a test he fought hard to prove himself worthy of in his father's eyes. The realization struck him that he had always equated his worth with achievement, never understanding that his true value lay within his compassion, his vulnerability. Jack's heart raced as he thought of Sarah's words, inviting and sincere, yet so unsettling. What did it mean to be genuine? Was his desire to display his art just a mask for a deeper longing to be seen? "Hey," Sarah's voice cut through his reverie, filled with warmth. "I think you're capturing something really special here." He smiled faintly, but inside, doubt bubbled like unprocessed emotions threatening to overflow. "Do you really think so?" His voice, barely above a whisper, carried the weight of uncertainty. "Absolutely," she replied, stepping closer to inspect his work. "You're pouring your soul into this. It's raw yet beautiful." The light in her eyes was a tether, anchoring him while simultaneously making him feel exposed. The brush, now smudged with both color and meaning, hesitated midair as he wrestled with the implications of her praise. "Does it have to be raw?" he questioned, searching for validation in her gaze. "What if people don't like it?" Her laughter was soft, encased in kindness. "Art isn't meant for everyone's approval. It's an expression of who you are, the good, the bad, the in-between. Those pieces that scare you are usually the ones that resonate the most." The challenge in her words struck him, igniting a spark of defiance against his fears. Could he embrace the vulnerability she urged? He rubbed his fingers over the brush, feeling the velvety paint pooled on the bristles, a visceral embodiment of his feelings. Maybe it was time to break free from the constraints that had held him captive for so long. As he painted, Jack felt weight lifting, an emotional exhalation flowing through him with every stroke. With each decision, he transformed the canvas into a representation of his journey, a personal testament of struggle, a declaration of resilience, reflecting dark shadows alongside brilliant hues. Each brushstroke drew out a piece of himself he had long suppressed, inviting a newfound freedom. Yet, beneath the liberating thrill, a nagging uncertainty lingered. Would Sarah still view him the same way when she discovered the depth of his struggles? The thought of her seeing his darkness, of revealing the scars that accompanied his journey, loomed like an ominous cloud. As he created, doubt crept back in, taunting him with the faces of critics, both real and imagined. The canvases in front of him were landmarks of triumph, yet they mirrored his internal conflicts, the pieces of him he still shied away from revealing. Jack, Sarah's voice broke his concentration. You don't have to carry your past alone. The innate compassion in her tone shattered his hesitation, and he met her gaze, unearthing the flicker of vulnerability within his core. But what if I don't know how to share it? Start by being honest with yourself, she urged, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. Art may be your voice, but your heart is the compass that guides it. Trust yourself. The enormity of her words rippled through him, chiseling away at the fear encasing his heart. Was it possible to accept the beautiful chaos of his being and still find connection with another? Taking a deep breath, he dipped into a raw ochre, staining it boldly against the midnight blue, meanwhile enveloping a sliver of vulnerability he had long shielded from the world. But even as Jack began to peel back the layers, exposing himself on canvas, he was unaware of the impending storm that awaited him just outside the studio, a confrontation that would test not just his art, but the very essence of who he was and what he dared to share. The air grew thick with anticipation as Jack added more strokes, determined to forge a new identity, ready to challenge not just the canvas, but his own understanding of love and acceptance. With each stroke, he breathed life into an uncertainty, transformed the temptation of letting go, courting both fear and freedom. But would the unveiling of his truth fracture the delicate connection forged between him and Sarah, or would it set them both onto a path of healing? As he stood before the canvas, caught between revelation and retreat, the moment of truth lurked, waiting to strike. The daylight slipping through the studio windows shifted and transformed as time ticked on, casting elongated shadows that danced across the canvas where Jack poured his heart. With each stroke a blend of vibrant ochre and deep midnight hues, he faced his own internal storm. The colors began to clash, forming edges that echoed his conflict. Yet in their tumult, he felt flickers of clarity emerge. Why have I always feared who I am? He muttered under his breath as he stepped back, scrutinizing the evolving masterpiece. What felt like a simple question suddenly carried the weight of a lifetime. Identity had been laden with expectations and the relentless pursuit of validation, not just from others, but from himself. Could he really unlearn these notions of self-worth tied to accolades and success? Sarah's presence lingered in the air, potent and encouraging, her prior words reverberating through him. Trust yourself. Being honest with yourself, what did that entail for him? The purpose behind his art began to spark a new journey towards self-acceptance. As the brush resumed its dance across the canvas, Jack forced himself to recall fragmented moments from his life, confrontations with shame, moments of silence where vulnerability didn't seem to find a safe haven. The brush felt alive, as if it had its own will. With every sweep, he embraced pieces of his past fears of inadequacy intertwined with his desires. He placed the raw ochre next to the midnight blue once more, and instead of recoiling, he found himself unearthing truths he had long buried. Exposing the rawness became empowering. Each color was a commentary on a scar, each stroke a testament to survival. Painting became more than a craft. It turned into a visceral conversation with himself. He allowed memories of laughter, joy, and sorrow to blur together, to paint a bridge connecting the fractured pieces of his identity. Yet, redirecting his thoughts to Sarah incited trepidation. Was this newfound freedom strong enough to endure if she saw what lay beneath the surface? Jack realized he was at a crossroads, to retreat into the safety of his constructed walls or leap into the uncharted realm of authenticity. The choice brought him face to face with an unsettling truth fear of intimacy, not just with Sarah, but within his own heart. What if embracing his vulnerabilities cost him the connection he cherished with others? He closed his eyes, the brush poised midair. He recalled Sarah's intuition, the strength she saw in what he deemed imperfect. Was this why he painted? For that tender sparkle in her eyes and acceptance he yearned for, but was too afraid to fully accept? Perhaps the deeper struggle had never been about Sarah's approval, but forgiving himself. Drawing a deep breath, Jack made an impulsive decision. He dipped the brush into deeper reds, symbolizing pain interwoven with passion, and ran it across the canvas in sweeping motions. The boldness mirrored his turbulent heart. Here, he was facing the vulnerability within and becoming the artist he had always resisted, being one willing to expose his scars as art. The studio door swung open, and in walked Chris, his mentor. "What's going on here?" Chris's eyes widened as he surveyed the work in progress. The energy shifted palpably, Jack's apprehension surfacing once more. Part of him craved affirmation, while another part recoiled, fearful of judgment. Could he bear to have Chris witness this revelation? Would sharing this piece, raw and unguarded, mean risking the professional relationship he valued? As Chris moved closer to examine the canvas, anticipation crackled in the air, fusing uncertainty and bravery in a single moment. "All I see are layers of struggle and beauty." Chris's voice was low, resonating with understanding. "It's a beginning." Jack's pulse quickened. Chris saw him. But what else would Chris unravel beneath the surface? Suddenly, the risk he took echoed memories of every decision that had ever felt overwhelming, every truth that had been both liberating and terrifying. The impending confrontation with Chris hung before him like a sharp breath, and as he prepared to confront the layers that defined him, he realized the true unveiling had only just begun. Jack's breath caught in his throat as he stood before Chris, the weight of vulnerability heavy on his shoulders. Each heartbeat resonated with the fear of judgment and the thirst for acceptance, forcing him to question just how far he could stretch his authenticity before it snapped under pressure. "Do you really think so?" Jack's voice wavered slightly, revealing the cracks in his otherwise carefully constructed composure. He had always admired Chris's insight into the emotional layers of art, yet in this moment, his praise felt both liberating and suffocating. Would this acknowledgement transform into a beacon of hope, or a mirror reflecting his most profound insecurities? Chris gave a nod, his eyes penetrating further into Jack's work than mere pigments and strokes. "This is a stage of your journey I never thought I'd see. It's powerful to confront these truths." A shiver ran down Jack's spine. He thought he had hidden his insecurities well, but here lay an undeniable testament of his internal struggle stretched across the vast expanse of the canvas. Yet, was it really truth, or merely a projection of what he wished to believe? The thick silence pressed upon him, each second stretching into eternity as he considered his next response. "What if I told you this feels like the real me?" He contemplated aloud, surprising himself. The question hung in the air, floating between fear and hope. Chris's face relaxed into an encouraging smile. "Then I tell you this is just the beginning of a venture toward becoming who you're meant to be." Jack took a step forward, drawn to the vibrant hues reflecting his tumultuous emotions, the raw reds, the weighty midnight blues. They weren't merely colors. They were echoes of his soul, longing for expression. Could Chris comprehend the extent of his fear? Did he realize how terrified Jack was of being truly seen, not just as a budding artist, but as the man who sprawled helplessly amidst self-doubt? As he shifted his gaze back to the canvas, something changed within him. A flicker of determination ignited. He ran his fingers through his hair, revealing the glimmering intention to let this piece breathe. He needed to test the limits of his vulnerability, not just as a means to create, but as a path to reclaim himself. What would it take for me to embrace this? Jack's question was pointed, a challenge to both himself and Chris. "Honesty," Chris replied after a thoughtful pause. "With yourself first, and then, when you feel ready, with others." Growth often requires stepping into discomfort. It's an invitation to not just share your art, but your essence. The words swooped into Jack's mind like a clarion call, reverberating deep within. Could he really allow himself to be open with Sarah, who had already sparked this journey of self-discovery? The connection he craved with her felt more elusive than ever, woven together with threads of fear blocking authenticity. "Do you think I could show this to her?" Jack's voice trembled, each syllable resonating with a kind of desperation. The idea of revealing his turmoil, of laying raw emotion on the table, was as freeing as it was paralyzing. Chris took a measured breath. That depends on your willingness to embrace both the potential for acceptance and rejection. It's a gamble, Jack, but often the greatest rewards lie in those very risks. The risk flashed before him images of Sarah's supportive smile, mixed with moments of potential misunderstanding. Would she see the man behind the canvas, or would she turn away, tired of the darkness he struggled with? He closed his eyes, trying to envision the moment they would stand together before this painting. Would she grasp its breadth, understanding the complexity of his heart intertwined with courage? Conflicted yet determined, Jack opened his eyes. "I want to do it," he declared, the resoluteness in his tone surprising even himself. The prospect of unleashing his true self both exhilarated and terrified him. "As soon as I'm ready, I'll show her." Chris nodded, pride gleaming in his gaze. That's the spirit. Just remember, courage. Isn't the absence of fear. It's the ability to confront it. With newfound clarity, Jack faced the canvas again. The fear swirled within him still, but behind it simmered a burgeoning acceptance the fear was unlikely to disappear. He had to learn to live alongside it. He dipped his brush back into the paint, recalibrating his focus as he added strokes, this time bearing parts of himself he never thought he could. What was on the surface was not just a painting, but a profound testimony, his truth shining through the mixed chaos of colors laid bare. And in this act of creation, he realized nothing felt more exhilarating than reclaiming his history and vulnerability. But would confronting both the canvas and Sarah yield the freedom he desperately sought? The tension of that impending revelation loomed like a building storm, leaving Jack questioning if he truly could navigate the relentless tides of intimacy. The moment of truth was fast approaching, and he knew he'd have to brace himself for the unfolding of his journey into authenticity. Jack's heart raced as he plunged back into the process of creating, each brushstroke becoming a deliberate act of catharsis. The canvas transformed into a battleground, where emotions clashed within him, the fear of inadequacy against the longing for expression. Every encounter with the paint was a whisper urging him to let go of the grip he had on his protective facade. The more he painted, the more layers of himself he peeled away. The colors blended into an explosion of chaos, screaming reds, brooding blues, the sharp interjections of white that felt like the hope he so desperately clung to. Did this chaotic symphony on canvas represent the journey of moving beyond the confines of his internal prison, or merely the swirling uncertainties still wrapped around his soul? He paused, stepping back to look at the piece in its entirety. It was raw, it was honest, but was that enough? His thoughts drifted to Sarah, her laughter like music in his ears, and her presence a warmth he craved. This connection he felt, so electrifying yet so fragile, beckoned him toward an abyss of vulnerability. Jack questioned if presenting this piece to her would act as a healing balm or a cruel reminder of his struggles. Could this display of his true self empower them both to breach the walls they deconstructed? He remembered the first time they had exchanged glances, the way her eyes sparkled with understanding. But could that understanding endure the weight of his truth? The clock ticked softly in the background, its rhythm matching the rising crescendo of his conflicting emotions. Each second drew him closer to the moment he would need to decide whether to let Sarah into the depths of his artistry, and consequently, the core of his being. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting shadows in the room, Jack felt the stark contrast between light and dark so familiar in his art and tragically relevant in his life. He grabbed the brush again, driven by an urgency to harness this torment into a final stroke. There was a peculiar clarity in confronting the truth that tinged his heart with fear, yet filled him with an electric sense of aliveness. Each stroke felt like a vow he would no longer hide behind the pretense of tidiness, of easily digestible narratives. This was a story as messy as life itself, With renewed intensity, he turned to the canvas one last time, layering a sunburst at the top, radiating warmth. It was both an offering and a question. Would it illuminate the dark spaces of his past, or would it be too much for someone like Sarah to bear? As he wiped his hands on a rag, Jack's thoughts spiraled into possibilities. A confrontation loomed before him each time he envisioned revealing this work. He considered searching for the right words to pair with the image, each phrase a tether that might connect his emotional turmoil to her heart. Moments of self-doubt haunted him. Was he merely seeking validation or pursuing something deeper? He knew well that the artist's plight was often entangled with the audience's perceptions. But did he want acceptance or connection? The dilemma spiraled, threatening to rupture the fragile hope that had begun to blossom within. Jack's fingers trembled as he inhaled deeply, feeling a wave of determination wash over him. This was, after all, a leap into the unknown, a step toward revealing the raw truth that resided beneath layers of brushstrokes. With every lingering thought of Sarah, the stakes became more defined. In the stillness of the room, he made a decision. He would reach out, offering more than just the art, but a piece of himself that needed to be shared. Clarity struck like a lightning bolt. He understood that growth demanded the risk of exposure. As he picked up his phone to text Sarah, doubt crept back in, coiling around his resolve. What if she was not ready for this openness? What if the unveiling did not yield the safety he sought, but instead shattered his cultivated world? Jack felt the intensity of the moment wrap around him, as if to press him against the very canvas he had just poured his soul into. Was he truly prepared for this revelation? Before he could second-guess himself, he hit send, and in that singular act, amidst the maelstrom of emotion, he took his first step toward not only showing his art, but also embracing the rawness of connection. Would he find safety in this vulnerability, or would it open the floodgates to further turmoil? The weight of anticipation settled like a heavy mist in the air as he waited for her response, knowing all too well that the path to authenticity was rarely straightforward. Each tick of the clock echoed his inner uncertainty. Had he just ignited a spark, or had he unwittingly placed a match to an impending conflagration? The seconds dragged interminably, each tick of the clock amplifying Jack's trepidation. The vibrant energy he had poured into the painting now felt overshadowed by a gnawing anxiety. What if Sarah viewed his raw emotions as a descent into chaos rather than an ascent toward authenticity? Could he bear to see her reaction, knowing the depths of his struggle lay bare before her? His phone lay heavily in his palm. The screen dimmed as if mocking him with silence. He imagined what she might be doing at that moment, smiling at a joke with friends, lost in a book, or perhaps reflecting upon the complexity that had become their relationship. Did she realize the weight of his message? His art was not merely paint on canvas. It was the embodiment of his vulnerability, the tapestry of his scattered emotions. Seconds crushed into minutes, and frustration began to boil. Jack pulled himself from the grip of uncertainty and paced the room. Each footfall echoed his determination to take control of the spiraling thoughts that threatened to plunge him back into isolation. He wasn't just an artist wrestling with color. He was a man on the brink of transformation. This moment could define whether he continued to hide or embraced the possibility of connection. He sought clarity within the chaos. Jack could not ignore the questions swirling in his mind. Why did he feel the need to share himself so openly? Was it the belief that art transcends words, or a deeper yearning for recognition of his truth? Breath quickened as he grappled with the realization. It was about realness, the longing to bridge the gap between two hearts searching for understanding. I need to know, he murmured to himself. The words felt like a mantra pushing him toward a decision. The act of creation had freed him. Now, the act of sharing had the power to liberate even further. With each recollection of Sarah's laughter, each vision of her gentle smile, his apprehension transformed into resolve. Sarah embodied the warmth he craved. Yet it was his responsibility to invite her into his world, to risk everything for the mere chance of connection. Was it madness? Perhaps. But Jack realized that true growth requires stepping into the unknown, embracing that risk. Just as he finally began to calm the tempest within, his phone vibrated, a herald of uncharted territory. Sarah's name flashed across the screen. Heart thudding in his chest, he maintained a breathless moment of anticipation before reading the message. "Hey, I was just about to text you. Your art. It's incredible. I feel like I need to see it. Can we meet?" A wave of elation surged within him, swiftly followed by dread. What had he unleashed? Jack wrestled with welcoming the exhilaration of her praise while fearing the magnitude of the encounter ahead. Would sharing his work amplify their connection, or would it endanger the delicate balance they had struck? He stared at his response window, fingers hovering above the keyboard, pulsing between eagerness and paralysis. He felt the thrumming possibility of revealing not just the art, but the bruised edges of his heart along with it. Did he dare articulate the depths of his feelings? Would the vulnerability that had once pushed him to hide now harness him to express? Time was slipping away, and Jack realized he had to make a choice. Breathy anticipation coiled tight in his chest, prompting him to type. "Yes, let us meet. I want to show you everything." As he hit send, a rush of adrenaline surged through him. He stood, grappling with the reality of the impending meeting that loomed ahead. The ticking of the clock had transformed from merely a measure of time to a countdown to revelation. He inhaled the lingering scent of paint, a reminder of creation, of life boldly lived. The canvas, still wet with his truths, called to him from the corner of the room. He was poised on the precipice of change, bracing himself for what this meeting might unveil. In that quiet reflection, Jack understood that life often demands more than mere courage. It requires transparency and the willingness to be seen, even in rawness. As the sun began to set, illuminating the room in hues that mirrored his art, he prepared for whatever emotion awaited him, buoyed by the knowledge that this was his moment to embrace the unfolding narrative of his heart. The time had come to face not just Sarah, but the truths he had long feared to share. Would this rehearsal of vulnerability ignite a fierce connection or reveal chasms too deep to cross? Jack stood in the sunlight that streamed through his studio window, the vibrant colors of his finished painting glowing with emotion. The mountains, a physical embodiment of both his past and his rebirth, loomed large on the canvas, their strength a reflection of his own evolution. It was a work steeped in vulnerability, juxtaposing the rugged exterior expected of a mountain man and the rich, pulsing heart that flowed within him. With every stroke of the brush, he had confronted the shadows of his upbringing, negotiated with the expectations of his father, and finally embraced the truth of his own identity, that he was not just a product of his past, but the architect of his future. He felt liberated by this self-acceptance, heightened by the realization that vulnerability did not equal weakness, but rather a testament to his courage. As he prepared to meet Sarah, nervous excitement coursed through him. Would she see his art as a reflection of who he truly was? Would she embrace the deeper layers of his heart that he had at last begun to unveil? He needed to trust that this moment could solidify the connection they had nurtured, or, at the very least, lay the groundwork for their shared journey ahead. When Sarah arrived, the moment felt electric, charged with anticipation and uncertainty. Standing in the doorway was the gentle spirit who had unlatched the door to his buried dreams. Her eyes widened in delight as she stepped into the studio, and Jack felt a rush of warmth spread through him. "Wow, Jack, this is incredible. It's breathtaking," she exclaimed, moving closer to the canvas, her fingers tracing the air above it, as if she could feel the energy emanating from the colors. Jack's breath hitched in his throat. "Thank you, but it's not just a landscape." His voice trembled slightly, revealing the weight behind each word. It's a piece of me, the struggle, the fear, and the hope all blended together." Her gaze shifted from the painting to him, her expression softening as she absorbed his honesty. "I can see that. There is so much emotion here," she said, her voice a soothing balm to the nerves coursing through him. It's raw and vivid, just like life itself. Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped closer to her, feeling an undeniable connection tether them as his heart raced. I wanted this to be a turning point for me, a way to show you a part of my journey. There have been moments in my life I've hidden away because I feared they would disappoint you or the person I thought I should be. Being an artist meant battling my own demons and learning to express my truth. Jack watched as understanding dawned in her eyes, and for a heartbeat, he felt an unspoken bond deepen between them. You were right, he continued, allowing the words to flow freely. Art is a way to connect, not just with others, but with myself. I've learned that embracing the chaos makes it all the more beautiful. His admission hung in the air, suspended between them. Their vulnerabilities laid bare. There was no pretense, just two souls stripped of armor, ready to explore the unknown together. He had conquered the fear that had kept him hidden for so long. Now, it was time to face this new chapter alongside her. "Jack, your story, your artistry, it means so much to me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Thank you for letting me in." With those words, Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. He had dared to reveal himself to Sarah, and in doing so, had stepped beyond the boundaries constructed by doubt. He had not only achieved authenticity, but had woven a deeper connection with someone who saw him for all he was. And at that moment, Jack realized that true personal achievement wasn't just about isolation or the fear of judgment, but about turning those very fears into bridges of connection. Together, they began to collaborate on a new canvas, blending their styles and ideas, a perfect visual representation of their potential future. Jack's heart swelled with gratitude. He was no longer alone in this journey. Surrounded by light and color, he felt more confident than ever. He had proven to himself that he could forge a new path while embracing both vulnerability and love, marking a profound transformation. As they worked in harmony, Jack knew he had not only achieved the release of his inner artist, he had conquered the heart of the mountain man in him, the soft gentleness that had long been hidden beneath the rugged exterior. Vulnerability had led him to fulfillment, and he welcomed this new beginning with unwavering resolve. Now is the time to spread this journey, to embrace new connections as endless possibilities opened up before him. You need to subscribe now to witness the continuation of stories that break barriers and redefine success. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm with love and support. Comment below your thoughts on Jack's transformation and his journey towards love and self-acceptance. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are ready to uncover their own journey of personal growth and achievement, because they deserve to be inspired. Don't wait even one more second to support storytellers lifting others towards light.